Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. Welcome back. I'm back, and I'm back with friends. George Mayer, Director of Sales and Watch Buying at Goffberg Jewelers. George, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Timmy. Very happy to be here.
This is a special pre-Basel episode. George is going to share some of his favorites from Basel luminaries, including Patek Philippe, Omega, and Rolex. And I've brought one of my favorites, not from any of the above brands, to show to you on the eve of the novelty season. Now, here's the thing, guys. We're still going to do our regular wrist shots, and George has got one hell of a piece of hardware on his wrist. So, George, I'm going to model, and you tell us what we're looking at here.
Okay. So this is my 3710. I've had it for several years now. It's my favorite variation of the Nautilus. So I don't know if there's a version of the Nautilus that's not to like, but this one, although it does not show it does not have an exhibition case back like the 5711 showing off a 324 movement. I like the black Roman dial over the blue stick dial. And I also like how it has a state of winding indicator that sort of rounds out the dial there at the top. Some refer to it as the comet complication. So love this guy. You don't see them very often, and I think it's a cool watch to wear, both sporty and dress.
Now, I'm going to throw a few extra points in there, guys. This was the first ever Nautilus complication when it came out 20 years ago in 1998. Now, the complication used here is actually a bidirectional power reserve. Both the scale, the little polished swoosh, and the hand move. Both of them move. And this particular power reserve complication was never used on another Patek Philippe product. Also, if you look at the case back and the junction of the case back and the case proper, you'll note this is the original Gerald Genta monoblock case with the movement and the dial being front loader, broadened through the front and then secured by the winglets, essential to the original patented design of Genta's Nautilus. All of that and a historic complication. I would not be shocked if we saw some kind of tribute, no matter how oblique, to this watch at Baselworld in 2018.
A prediction I have, thank you very much, would be maybe if Patek does a Nautilus Perpetual. So it's something, I mean, they have the complication. The Nautilus is on fire. I think they could bring the house down by doing that. Make it super tight. The watch would just be so in crazy demand. You know, whether they do it in gold, steel would be just insane. I think they maybe hold on to that variation, do it last, but it would be very cool. AP does it with the Royal Oak, so why can't Patek do it with the Nautilus?
Yeah, and the annual calendars had a long enough run. The Nautilus annual calendar came out in 2010. The steel version, I believe, came out in 2012, and that's the 5726. A special watch, but if you really want to set the haute de gamme apart and throw a bone to those folks who have said that the Nautilus line really needs to evolve, a Perpetual with the 240 micro rotor would be a very special way to do it.
Killer.
Okay, now let me show you what I'm wearing tonight. This is a watch that means a great deal to me because I wore it through a couple of memorable episodes of my life. This is my white gold Reverso Duo. Now you can see it is the night and day complication on the front where you actually have the day and the night phase. We're kind of betwixt and between at 6 p.m. U.S. East Coast time. Hand-painted Breguet numerals and an unusual feature with the hands on both the Verso and the Recto dials being luminescent, but there's more to it than that. Now, I wore this watch to a watchmaking clinic with the AWCI. 2.5 years ago, Mike Michaels sent me to a staffing course where I was so in over my head from my first stab at watchmaking that to this day, I believe that he threw me in there as a hazing ritual to see if I'd want to come back after that. And for 2.5 years, I begged to be allowed to do so. Now, here's the thing. 2.5 years later, I'd refined my skills, I'd worked at it, and I made a point of wearing the exact same watch that I wore to my Waterloo the last time. And I'm happy to say I'm going to be moving on with those programs and continuing because I had a great experience. And this time, once again, it was thanks entirely to Mike making it possible. I wore the same watch, more good memories finally associated with this one. And I'll show you another wrist shot. My Pilot watch. Why do I call it my Pilot watch? Well, because I built it, and you can see the watchmaking tools that I used to take apart and overhaul this movement at the AWCI Institute in Ohio. That's not the oiling chart I used, that's the old oiling chart, but you guys can do the same thing. Check out Introduction to Watchmaking with the American Watchmakers and Clockmakers Institute. 2-in-1, clocks and watches in one building, and a good time. Tom Shoemaker, thank you so much. I want to thank Aaron Rexick, my other instructor, who was tolerant and patient. Thanks, guys. Great time. I encourage everyone out there to pursue this if they're stateside. All right. I want to emphasize that there is no better place than thewatchbox.com when you're ready to sell your watch, trade your watch, or buy your new flame. George, what can they do on our website?
So on our website, you can buy pre-owned watches. All of our pre-owned inventory is live. So everything that's available for sale or advertised for sale can be purchased immediately. Our new watches that we post, it's more a representation of the line just because our inventory is ever evolving. It is with pre-owned too, but it's a little bit more complicated with the distribution when it comes to new. You can also sell your watch through our website. So all hours of the day, if you reach out to us, we'll be back to you within 24 hours with a quote at which we would buy the watch, contingent on it being in operating condition.
24 hours a day, my favorite way to buy, trade, and sell watches. And George might even help me get one after this show is over. All right, guys, live audience poll. I've posted the link in our live chat. Tonight, we are talking about this or that Metal Gear Geneva. If you can remember the epic battle between Solid Snake and Liquid Snake, it's exactly that, but in watch form. Now, Patek Pilot Dogfight, the tried and true 5524G white gold, the most controversial and spectacular Patek Philippe of the 2015 model year, versus the new hotness, the 5524R in rose gold, late of Patek Philippe's new Instagram account. Okay, you guys are going to vote, and George is going to pick a winner here. But first, some background. Patek Philippe 5524G Calatrava Pilot Time. Okay, so Calatrava Pilot Travel Time is a 2015 launch, white gold, gray gold, because it's not rhodium plated. Gorgeous blue-grained dial, not a limited edition, but limited production, and strictly so. I have to say, this is still a coveted watch, in demand on secondary markets, and I really have to emphasize it's one of the few precious metal Calatravas that can boast that feat. For the most part, precious metal Calatravas don't price and sell like the steel sports watches. This is one of the few exceptions. A red-hot watch and well worth the money at $47,630 US. Now, there is also the Patek Philippe 5524R Calatrava Pilot Travel Time from, well, the last 48 hours. That's the composite image on Patek's Instagram. So 2018, Patek's Instagram, rose gold with a chocolate sunburst dial, includes a 37mm mid-size option, which is really quite encouraging because that's a handsome watch that plenty of folks would be proud to wear, but we're talking strictly 42. Both are 42mm cases. Both feature above average Calatrava water resistance of 60 meters, lockable travel time pushers so you don't accidentally adjust that travel time indicator, automatic caliber 324, and of course monstrous amounts of dial loom for a Patek. George, which one of these would you buy for yourself with your own money?
So without having seen the 5524R, I would go with the 5524G. I typically like white metals over rose. The rose, I bet you it's going to be pretty flashy with the brownish, grayish dial. I think it's definitely going to pop. You're going to notice it right away. The 5524G is a little bit more under the radar. That would be the one that I would go with, albeit subject to change. When I see the rose gold version, maybe I'll have a different opinion. We were talking about in the office today. I think you're going to see some men wearing the 37.5mm size. I think it would be super cool. I think that it would probably be a better size for me. I have a small, little bird wrist, as I like to call it. I feel like that would be the one that I'm going to jump to when I get to see it in Basel. I'm going to grab that and put that on my wrist as opposed to the 42mm version.
I can easily see that being a dress watch, too. If you wanted to wear this watch as a substitute for something like a 5134 Calatrava travel time, the 37 would be the option. And I would even say there's an argument for having both. You could have the 5524G and the R, budget permitting. Let's say you're flying from the banking centers of London to the Italian Riviera for a vacation. All right, now you wear the 5524G in London, switch over to the R on the Riviera, and one might say if you're going to dinner in Geneva in between, maybe wear the 37 there as sort of a go-between in the traditional refined environment of haute de gamme watchmaking. So George, let's take a guys. Can we throw up the poll? See how we're doing with this. By the way, guys, if you're in our live chat box, click the link, vote in our poll, and if you're actually looking at this through a different medium, and you can see the description box, jump into the description box, click the link, and vote away. We're going to be updating this throughout the show tonight. I think we're of one mind. George and I would both go with the white gold. You know, we're northern. That's how we style. We're more Philadelphia and New York than Miami Beach and the Copacabana. All right, guys. Welcome. I can see Ray Bonifond, Chicago 7, and Dave Lemieux. Better late than never. Couldn't agree more. Okay, rolling into Instagram, Tim_Massa on Instagram. Follow me throughout the Basel Fair. That will be the place where I update several times a day, not just the one time I crackle to life on the airwaves at 6. All right, comment if you're watching this recorded, and subscribe if you're not already. You're going to see the best Baselworld 2018 coverage on this channel in real time. We're going to be first and best with everything. Wrist shots. I asked and you answered. George, we showed our wrist shots, right?
We did indeed.
Let's show some viewer wrist shots. From your wrist to my pixels. Okay, Russell K debuts a Watchbox augmented reality technology showing how it works. You have this overlay atop your regular watch on your physical wrist, and then you can view watches in our inventory in real size relative to your wrist. This is what the printout looks like. You print it out, you cut it out, you put it on your wrist, and then you can look at anything from Audemars Piguet to a Zeitwerk. A to Z on your wrist, augmented reality only on the Watchbox app. Check out thewatchbox.com for download details. Absolutely awesome. This is our latest feature, real-time pricing as ever of one watch or your entire collection. Download it today.
Truly incredible, I must say.
And the AR stuff is awesome. Look, I'm not about valuing my watches because I never sell, but being able to see a 44mm watch on my skinny wrist and knowing whether I'm taking the plunge in good faith and, you know, the thing's going to fit when it arrives, no better guide than AR. Eddie S. drives with the BMW top down as spring arrives, wearing his Rolex Submariner in frigid Stockholm. Congratulations, my man, on car and watch. Watches and wheels, high style in both cases. Although I gotta say, I would be cranking the seat heaters with snow still on the ground. I'm skinny, I don't like that. Okay, Peter B is the shining star thanks to the tritium lume of his Ball Trainmaster GMT. Yes, it's a GMT and it glows like a torch with or without the sun. Perfect for Stockholm, I'd imagine. Although, Eddie, of course, rocking his sub and no regrets there. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your watch on my screen. All right, viewer mail and questions. By the way, guys, comment and subscribe. George, here's a question from Paul S. I want you to give me the answer because I don't want to taint your response in any way.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Hi, Tim. This is Paul S. I've owned my first watch, an Omega Seamaster 300-meter diver, for a year now, and I've decided I love the watch hobby. Good move. I've spent time learning how much there is to know and how huge the universe of brands and models, past and present, really is. So here's my question. Should I work my way up to more expensive models by purchasing successively more expensive and complicated watches? Example, I own the Seamaster now. Next, I buy a Tag Heuer Autavia for about $5,150. Then, a little bit later, save up some more, I upgrade to a JLC Master Chronograph, $10,800 steel on a bracelet. Or should I just save up for the watch I really want and buy it straight up, a Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronograph, second generation, 49150 with the big date. Now this is a $21,000 watch new, but you can get it on the Watchbox for $13,450. You know, word to the wise there. So here's the question Paul asks. Should I be able to afford the Vacheron in about 12 months? Given that I won't buy other watches, what should I do? Should I work my way up in steps, buying other watches along the way, and possibly winding up with a collection, but spending more money, or just go for the Grail watch? George, what should he do?
I would recommend working your way up. So when you have a lot of watches, you learn through experience. And I've always found when I've had, you know, a good rotation working that it leads me to appreciate each watch more. When you put a watch down for 5 days and come back to it, you get that fresh feeling, like that honeymoon feeling. It just feels great. And some more than others. So when you don't wear a watch for 8 days, 2 months, whatever it may be, if you go back to it and the romanticism isn't there anymore, maybe that's not a watch for you. And you learn which watches you're more inclined to wear, which you enjoy more. And as a result, while you're wearing more watches, your Grail watch might change. So you may realize that you know what, you don't really like the chronograph function for whatever reason. You'd prefer a GMT as opposed to the Frederick Breguet chrono movement that's in the second gen overseas chronograph. You learn along the way, and I think that the more watches that you have in your collection and the more watches you wear, you get a better sense of what the best watch is for you and what should be your grail watch, and then you finally get to the point where you have watches that you would just never get rid of. And I think that's what I've gotten to the point with now. I have several watches that I just wouldn't even think about getting rid of, and there are several watches that I've traded that I learned just weren't for me. I wasn't enjoying them, and you know, I mean, it costs some, obviously, to go through it. So you know, that's obviously the part that is difficult. Albeit, I think that it's worth the money if you can quantify it so that when you make the leap into the more expensive watch, you're certain that it's the watch for you.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for getting some practice as a collector. First, read everything, look at everything, try everything on in person. It may be that there's some middle ground that appeals. Like instead of getting 2 watches in your staircase up to the Vacheron, you know, you focus on getting one that you really want rather than the JLC and the Tag Heuer. And I would recommend, if your time frame is somewhere from a year to 2 years, getting a watch in the meantime to keep yourself revved up and the juices flowing, because this is a hobby that is at its best when you can participate. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to own every grail watch that your head can conceive or your heart can pursue, but it is nice to have a little bit of a collection and to be able to look at not just at the roadmap ahead and say, this is what I want to buy, but this is where I've been, and these are the memories I've come to associate with the watches I've owned. Just like I've got that Reverso with the 2 emotional highs and lows associated with the one watch with 2 dials. That's kind of what happens when you collect. And like George said, you could avoid a big mistake. There's also a Vacheron Overseas second generation dual time, and you might decide you want that GMT function rather than the chronograph. So when you reach the time to buy your grail watch, the money makes sense, you've explored your preferences as a collector, you've built up your collection, you know, you go with the 47-450 instead of the 49-150, and you come out happier for it. So I think that's a great answer, George. And
it's true. Somebody mentioned, you know, you'll spend a lot more money doing it that way. You want to make sure that you know, buy cautiously, maybe buy pre-owned, and realize what your downside is if you're going to experiment with something. But you know, you want to learn about which complication is for you, which dial color is for you, what thickness of a case is for you. There's a lot of things that you can't learn just by trying a watch on at a store or reading. You know, you need to have it and wear it for an extended period of time.
I would also say this. It's one thing to argue that you should build up your understanding of yourself and of watches as a collector, but I'm going to caution you against buying any watch you don't love. Now, this is where the logic falls apart. This is where I would say go straight for your grail watch. If there's only one watch you truly love, you sit on this notion, you ruminate over it for 6 months or so, and you still say, I'm ready to go whole hog, save as long as possible to buy the one watch I truly want. If you're looking at the Tag and the JLC as watches that you would settle to own, if you would settle for them, or if a watch comes along that's a good price and you're buying the deal, not the watch, or the accessory set, or it makes sense at the time but it doesn't really excite you, don't settle. You can absolutely work your way up in stepping stone watches to the ultimate grail watch in your mind, but don't spend money on anything you don't love. This is all about discretionary cash. It's an emotional hobby. If you don't feel 100% invested in a watch, whether it's your destination watch or a waypoint, that's when I would say don't buy the intermediate watch, because then you're going to wind up buying twice to get the same thing once. If you love the watches along the way, then you're just buying a different experience and a different kind of fulfillment en route to your ultimate goal.
A mistake a lot of people make is buying something based off of what others say, and I think you need to do what you want to do and what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So
that buying what others say you should buy, or buying a watch because the price looked good. Don't buy the price, buy the watch, and buy the whole package. Sales, accessories, condition, provenance, and finally the timepiece, the reference. Okay, George, let's jump straight into wrist shots. By the way, I got a question from Edward Ledden in Sweden. Tim, how's your JLC roadmap going? I'll have a better idea of that after the broadcast when this dude and I talk about a minute repeater I've got my eyes on. So Don Gizzle from Germany asking what's on the table tonight. Why don't you, before we jump to wrist shots, why don't we quickly take a look at 2 watches you brought for us, George? Don't go for the crescendo. Don't go for the ultimate watch. We need to go out with a bang. So lead us in with something a little bit more gentle.
Okay, well, I'm going to touch quickly on Patek Perpetual Chronos. So this is probably, I mean, one of, if not my single favorite Patek. I absolutely love the 3970p. You oftentimes see the black dial with diamond hour markers and rarely see it with the basic sticks. This version is just so hot. I wouldn't change anything about it. The dial is perfectly spaced. It's nice and compact, and it's just an awesome wear. I had it on my wrist the other day, and I enjoyed it tremendously. The 5270, which we also brought, is the first ever in-house perpetual chrono that Patek Philippe has made. It came out after the 5970. The 5970 was just a bigger version of the 3970, more or less, than the last version with the Le Mans movement. I think that Patek is going to come out with a 5270J at this year's Basel. I don't know that for sure. That's just a hunch, but it would make sense. So this is the first iteration of the white gold 5270. They ended up making 5 different dial configurations of it, believe it or not. They then did the rose gold version, which has been officially discontinued. And it makes sense to do a yellow gold, perhaps black dial. It's why I brought out the 5070, because they did do a Arabic black dial in the 5070 in yellow gold, and I think that that would just be killer. We were mentioning today, what if they did it on a yellow gold bracelet? It wouldn't be crazy, right? I mean, they did the 5204R on a bracelet.
Absolutely.
You know, it would just be super, super hot. So I suspect that they do some sort of new variation of the 5270 this year.
We're going to showcase that 5070J in just a moment. One of my personal favorite Patek Philippe references, so stay tuned. First thing though, wrist shots, I asked, you answered. A few more from our favorite viewers. Andre O wears the first Omega in space, in Sedna gold no less, and it's coming from -11 Celsius in Oslo, Norway, which is frigid even by the standards of my old college town, Hanover, New Hampshire. At the same time, Con N drives German and wears Swiss with his anniversary Submariner, sometimes known as the Kermit. This was the original 2003 green bezel and black dial combination with the first regular production Submariner maxi dial of the modern era.
Love
and
it.
finally, George, you're a Porsche driver, right?
I am. I just picked up a Porsche.
And we've actually got his green Submariner on the table tonight, so to be continued. But Noah R. shares his JLC Master Ultra Thin Small Seconds on a rare bracelet, and I have to say it really complements the case and the dial. All silver grayscale, super cool for the last day of winter. All right, send your wrist shots to MondayMailbag@thewatchbox.com. See your watch on my screen. All right, let's jump straight into this. Back to Patek Philippe. George, we're going to talk a little bit about Baselworld by first taking a look back at what's been from Patek, Rolex, and Omega. So 3710 1A, we talked a little bit about that. That's my personal Grail Nautilus, and you own it.
Awesome. I didn't know that.
I love that piece. And believe me, I love me some JLC powered Nautilus. I'm still all about this thing. Okay, let's jump straight into a watch we haven't talked about yet, the 5070J. Now this is a watch that originally came out in 1998. This was the first version of it and also the last execution of the Le Mans 2310 Bausch in a Patek Philippe chrono. So let's talk about where this watch comes from and what it means.
So this has a Le Mans movement in it as well. It's the predecessor to the 5170. It is one of the biggest Pateks that they've ever come out with. You know, there's the 5976 that came out that was 44 millimeters as part of the Nautilus anniversary. But the 5070 has always been super collectible. They did 4 different iterations, rose gold, silver dial, a G version, white gold with a white dial, a platinum with the blue, and then this version. Typically, I'm not a yellow gold guy, but this one works for me. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I think it is fire. I think it is just awesome. I love the dial tremendously, and you can get lost in that movement right there. It's just an awesome, awesome piece.
Yeah, this is not an old Omega Moonwatch caliber, although it shares the same core DNA. The bottom line is that Patek Philippe has changed it so dramatically that it is effectively a Patek movement. Now you're looking at all the romantic gold standards there. A huge balance, beating weight, 18,000 vibrations per hour. hour, almost a third of the diameter of the whole caliber, a big and beautifully black polished column wheel cap, Geneva style at the bottom. Hallmark of Geneva finish with the Geneva seal. This is long before mid-2009 when they switched over to the Patek seal. Let me grab a polishing cloth because I feel like I'm not doing justice to this watch with all my fingerprints. This is my favorite Patek Philippe chronograph. Now, you know my favorite Patek Philippe is the 5235G regulator. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but take a look at this monster. Here's the thing. People said when this watch came out, oh, this is Patek being voguish, going with the oversized 42 millimeter to suit modern tastes. Anything but. This watch is downsized from the watch that inspired it, which was the 46 millimeter Aviator's split-second reference 2512. Today in the Patek Philippe Museum, if you went to the Grand Exhibition in New York in 2017, epic experience, you would have seen the original. This watch is 42, that watch is 46. This is almost a dress watch compared to the timepiece that inspired it, but what a monster. Applied Arabic numerals, black base, gilt-style printing, and a double scale outboard with tachymeter and 60-second race. Does it get any better than this? No, not really. Would I trade an in-house movement for that? I would not. George, where does this watch sit in Patek Philippe history? I mean, where is it in the pantheon?
So it's super collectible. I think that something that I wanted to touch on, I'm glad that you reminded me of it. We're constantly asked now, which is the one to have? Do you get the last ever non-in-house movement or the first ever in-house movement? And it's interesting. On the 5070 versus the 5170, the 5070 seems to be the one to have. The 5170P that just came out with the baguette hour markers has been extremely well received. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. They're using baguette hour markers more and more now. They just did it on a 5396 in rose with a blue dial. They did it on the Nautilus anniversary pieces, and they execute it tremendously well. Interestingly enough, on the perpetual calendars, people are gravitating more towards the 5270s. While the 5970s are trading for slightly higher than the 5270s, they're evening out. And, you know, there are a lot of people out there that think the 5270 has a nicer movement, and I love the aesthetics of it more. I think it has these futuristic lugs on it. I'll let you...
It's interesting because it's a smaller watch with a bigger movement than the 5070 and the 5970.
I just think that watch is absolutely killer. And it's interesting, they've really shot up on the secondary market because I think that, you know, people usually want what you can't have. And the 5970, it's no longer made. It's always going to be a staple to the brand and very collectible. However, now that the 5270s are on their way out, all the white gold versions, they haven't been made in a while. They've really jumped up. And the rose gold versions we've seen strengthen a lot too. So if they execute a 5270J this year well, I think you're going to see that people are going to gravitate towards the watch and it's really going to become more coveted.
Two quick notes on the 5270. First, guys, this is the original 2011 execution. This is the 5270G001. Note it's pre-tachymeter and pre-chin. Arguably the cleanest and most attractive of the entire series. They got it right out of the gate. I don't know why they changed. Also, we mentioned it, but we need to clarify. We actually know some of the discontinued Patek references for this year, and the 5270R is one of the discontinued references. That's confirmed. I don't know what will take its place, but it's hard to imagine that having come out in 2011, the line is dead, but like George says, this opens the door to something like a full bracelet or a yellow gold reference or an exquisite diamond dial with those masculine baguette markers, which I think really nails the diamond dial for men's watches.
Yes. Another discontinued watch, ironically, is the 5960 Steel. So this was a Basel release from last year, and before this year's Basel, it's discontinued. Unbelievably short run. This watch, I think, is going to be tremendously collectible moving forward. So they did the white dial version for several years, and it started to get a little soft. You know, they made a lot of them, and so what do? They switch it over to the black dial and make a 3-month run. I mean, by the time they actually started to deliver it, I think they discontinued it no more than, 90 days later. So what a really good looking watch, and there are not many of these available, and they're not making any more moving forward. So this is one to go after. It's similar to the 5960P 016 dial, which is the black dial, which we also brought.
Yes.
That one they made very similar. They made it for less than a year, and the marketplace on it is a lot higher than it is for the blue dial variation, the gray dial version. Another just awesome, awesome watch. watch.
In fact, why don't we do a quick side-by-side, and I'll quickly introduce our viewers to these watches, which are dearly departed already. Okay, the watch that you see in this hand, this is the 5960 P016. It came out in 2013. The precious metal 5960 died in 2014 when this model with a white dial, the 5960 1A, launched. So this is not just the literal ultimate 5960 Platinum, but it was also by far the cleanest dial iteration with an opaline black featuring a monotone mono counter. That controversial hour and minute register with the annual calendar's day-night indicator at 6 o'clock, hugely controversial on older versions, the original versions of this watch in 2010 and 2006. This was the cleanest, and it ran for one model year. A special watch, but probably not even as special as this one. This is a watch that we only saw for the first time in prototype form. It was really a non-running mock-up at Baselworld 2017. Now, of course, the steel one with the white dial, the French Mime, came out in 2014. That watch is also dead this year, but the important thing, like George said, is that this watch only started deliveries mid-2017. The model year ended in the fall. The watch was only built for the blink of an eye. You're looking at a 1 year, or I should even say fraction of a year, steel Patek Philippe complication. Can you say collectible?
Absolutely.
Okay, so those are special watches right there. Guys, by the way, interactive show, ask questions to me and George. George has bought and sold more watches than any 2 or 3 people that I know. So if he can't answer it, no one can. Also a collector in his own right, he buys the nice stuff. Journe, Patek Philippe, and Rolex, and he's got some great ones. We're gonna have to do a collector's corner, George Mayer, someday on the show.
I would love that, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So now here's the thing, guys, ask questions, because, okay, we had a question about whether there's going to be a new Rolex GMT. People have seen Rolex's teaser. Let's just get this out there. Is there going to be a new GMT?
I think there is. I've heard rumors of a stainless steel Pepsi with an integrated Jubilee bracelet from a reputable source. You know, rumor mill has been circulating saying a Coke bezel GMT for a long time. I think a lot of people want that. It'll be interesting to see. You know, Rolex always keeps everything close to their chest. You know, there's speculation that the green Submariner, the Hulk as many call it, is going to be discontinued. I heard somebody today say they made the anniversary sub with the green bezel, the Kermit, as they say, for 5 years, and that this has run its course of 5 years, so that this will be discontinued. I see people in the chat saying that they're definitely going to discontinue a 39mm sports model. I know on one of your previous shows, recent shows, you said that it would make sense for them to discontinue another, stainless steel sports model.
That logjam of the Milgauss, the Air King, the Oyster Perpetual 39, and the Explorer 1 that are all basically the same watch, give or take a millimeter.
It amazes me that the Batman is still selling as well as it is. I mean, there's still a waiting list for that watch. It's been out for how long? I mean, it's unbelievable how strong that watch is.
2013, that watch comes out. It has never been stronger on the market than it is right now, this instant. And we've actually got some Omegas that buck the usual trend, Omegas that perform like those Rolexes. One quick thought, guys. This is all about, this show is emotional. This hobby is emotional. And watches are really, if you get down to it, about the human memories and the occasions that we associate from our lives with our watches. They become vessels for the memories of people and times and experiences that have made our lives meaningful. And this particular Rolex is no mean Hulk. This is actually a little bit of a memento. Could you explain what this means, George?
Those are my initials right there, George Arthur Mayer. So I was fortunate to get this when we had been a Rolex dealer for several years, and I had the opportunity to get one and jumped right on it. And I'm super happy with the decision I made. I absolutely love this watch, one that I will never ever get rid of, for instance. And it's pretty cool that it's personalized like that.
So this one is off the market officially. If anything speaks to a man's commitment to his watch, it's engraving and personalization. That is George's Submariner right there, guys.
Love it.
You can't have it. And again, that's a model that's been out since 2010, and it has never been hotter on the market than it is right now.
If it gets discontinued, it's a $15,000 watch overnight, without a doubt. and it's already shifting that way. It's a $9,050 retail, and it's trading for around $11,000. It's really shot up, like pretty much all of the stainless steel sports models have. One that I wanted to make sure we showed everyone, just because of how special it is, and you rarely see them.
Oh,
look
my goodness.
Look at that monster right there. So rainbow bezel Yachtmaster. I found out that it is no longer on Rolex's website, so it may have been a very, very short run. I think it's a super cool watch for a lady, but men can wear it as well. Just not something you see very often, and could be a very collectible piece. We just took this in, so I figured it would be cool to show it to everyone, since you don't oftentimes see them in the flesh. I think something along the lines of, who knows? This is just an assumption, but I believe something along the lines of 10, 20 have come to the United States.
That is no exaggeration. And guys, I know some fellows have trouble getting their brains around the idea of gems on a men's watch. For me, this is sensational. This is one of the rare occasions when you can own a métier d'art Rolex, a true craft art executed with seamless channeling. You do not see any clincher gold present. You do not see any retaining features. This is seamless, linkless, literally jewel to jewel, flush fitting, like no one else except maybe Patek does it. Sensational, with a combination of one diamond, sapphires, and several types of tsavorite. This is Rolex's answer to the world of engraving, guilloche, miniature painting, and enameling, and as only Geneva's Giant can do it. Top of the line with the Oyster Flex bracelet.
There's nothing in between on that watch. A lot of responses in the chat room right now. Some are saying hideous, some are saying I absolutely love it. Those are the responses I would expect. There's no in between, that's for sure. But Oyster Flex strap, it'll be interesting to see if they put it on another model. I brought a Oyster Flex Daytona, which I think all three variations, rose gold, yellow gold, and white gold, have been just in crazy demand. Talk about an unbelievable watch. I would love to wear that watch. Another yellow gold watch that I would wear. I'm not really a yellow gold guy.
Yellow gold is making a comeback. First of all, Rolex, Vacheron, and Patek never gave up. Lange is a big fan, but arguably no company in the industry is more influential in Rolex. And by putting yellow gold on its up-to-the-minute postmodernist combination of titanium nickel alloy bracelet, rubber, ceramic bezel. This is a watch of the 21st century. It's not necessarily a motorsports watch. It's not necessarily an aquatic watch. It's not a dress watch. It's definitely a sports watch. One could argue it's all of the above. I call it postmodern because this is way past the era of grungy men in Nomex timing race cars trackside at Daytona. This is Rolex as a fabulous alternative to the highest of high horology, with materials, manufacturing, technology. Again, the alloy inside this bracelet, and it is a bracelet coated with rubber, not the other way around. It is a solid metal band, takes yellow gold to the bleeding edge of technology, and this is how Rolex does it. And correct me if I'm wrong, George, but this is a waitlist watch.
Big time. All three variations. In fact, we're a pretty big Rolex dealer. We've gotten one white gold Daytona on Oyster Flex, so super, super rare. They trade at retail because they're so hard to get. The yellow gold version, 27.5, rose gold and white gold, 28.8, as typical with Rolex, slightly more expensive for those metals with the alloys.
Let's hit something super special before we move on to the antidote to Rolex, which is Omega, and they're well represented on the table. This is a watch that defies categorization because I have never seen another example like it. What is this, George?
2526. I'm going to let you take the reins on this because of how special it is, but it's a Tiffany dial as well, Tiffany enamel dial. You do not see this watch very often, and you were telling me before the show, I think it's the 65th anniversary.
65th anniversary of this watch, which was Patek Philippe in 1953. It was Patek Philippe's first ever automatic watch. This is the caliber 12600, one of the best automatic calibers ever created. Patek got it right out of the gate. Now, the watch features an enamel dial that has been hand-signed Tiffany & Co. by the retailer in New York. The enamel dial on this one is immaculate. The case appears minimally refinished, and it is rare for these to survive that long without being molested by the polishing wheel. So not only are the guidrons of the bezel beautifully flush and the lugs completely full, but the dial is without cracks, without tarnish. All of the indices appear almost as good as the day they first rolled out of Geneva. And of course, with that timeless plexiglass bubble, you get the best of all possible worlds. Patek Philippe watchmaking, the romance of the Tiffany name, the gorgeous luster of enamel, and some of the finest and most versatile case lines you will ever see on a watch. This is not a dress watch, folks. This is an all-the-time watch. For anything but those occasions when you must get wet, this is an absolute powerhouse in any size, in any company, in any era.
Absolutely killer. And one of the questions we were asked was, is the 5196P discontinued? Yes, it is, as is the 5120. Which, you know, the hobnail self-winding Calatrava. So does Patek come out with another Calatrava this year? You know, the 5320, which is the perpetual with that cream dial, has been very well received. It'll be interesting to see if they do some sort of basic Calatrava with that dial color, or does then that become played out? You know, it's a tough decision, but it would make sense for them to have a new basic Calatrava in the line to replace some of the watches that have been discontinued over the last year.
I do believe that would be the case, and the best possible answer would be to open the account with a steel tribute to the 2526 on the table. Steel enamel dial, break the internet. That would be absolutely awesome. Patek, please make this happen. It's not too late. Terry Stern, you are the overlord of the highest house in high horology. I'm sure you could find some way to throw together a mock-up before the fair opens this week. All of that said, if it's not in the cards, we'll live, because we've got wonderful options. Friends from the recent past from Omega. Now, we're going to see the new, I'm assuming, 70th anniversary Seamasters, but let's look back, not in anger, but in wistful nostalgia, to the last couple of model years. We got 2015 with Silver Snoopy 2 and 2016 with the Speedmaster, last year's 60th anniversary birthday boy. George, what do these watches represent in terms of future collectability?
So the Snoopy has become unbelievably collectible. It was a 7150 or 7350 retail, and it is now trading, I want to say, at least 20,000, maybe even 25,000. It's hard to know because there aren't any available for sale. I think that's when a watch becomes another level of coveted and special, when not only a watch is posted and available at crazy high prices, but the people who have them don't even want to sell them. So 1,970 pieces, I believe it was. Unbelievably cool watch, and super difficult to get at this point. 5131.
Let's talk about what these watches have in common, though. What they both have in common is enameling. Right here with this, I don't want to talk over you, George, but I just want to make sure we get this in.
I think people want to hear you more than they want to hear me.
These are both discontinued references. The 5131R is dead, but you've got cloisonné enamel. You expect that from Patek Philippe. Now a Grail watch among Grail watches. But the Snoopy features both freehand engraved sterling silver Snoopies. That's a freehand engraved sterling silver Snoopy drawn by Charles Schultz, executed by Omega's craftsmen, and it's on a beautiful midnight, almost aventurine-like enamel. So this is a 1,970-piece limited edition. Like George said, now trading for over $20,000 off an original retail of $7,350. This is a watch that puts the original Silver Snoopy of 2003 to absolute shame. And that model, made in 5,441 copies, now trades for $13,000. I don't even know what this watch is worth, George. But
I love that watch. It's super cool. In the dark, Snoopy looms up. I mean, there's not a single thing I would change about it. I think they hit a home run there, grand slam. So it'll be interesting to see if they can come out with another cool limited edition at this year's Basel. I've heard rumors of another variation of the 2998, which is why I brought this out.
Let me throw this up there.
This wasn't as big of a success as the Snoopy, not even close. Albeit, you know, still trades for around what the retail price was, and a very good-looking watch. I love the contrasting subs. We brought out another Omega as well, blue ceramic. They call it the Big Blue, which I think is an unbelievable value. So you have a blue ceramic GMT diver here at 11.7 retail, and if that watch said Audemars Piguet on it, I think it could be 2 times the price.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Audemars Piguet's movement isn't even close to as sophisticated as what's in here. Can you imagine what a Royal Oak, let's say a Royal Oak 44, full ceramic case, ceramic bezel, what does that cost? I mean, just give us an idea of what that retails for.
I mean, it would be in the 30s, unquestionably. You know, if it was the chrono. So yeah, you're getting a tremendous value here. Swatch Group in general, Blancpain does some great blue ceramic pieces as well. Swatch Group seems to have mastered that production, and I think that's a terrific value there. Omega is really doing some great stuff now. They've always offered terrific value, and I am very bullish on the brand moving forward.
I also want to throw this out, guys. This is the Métas standard. This is a master chronometer. Now, it's a tribute to the reference 166073, the Seamaster 120 chronograph, Big Blue of the 70s. There's nothing wistfully nostalgic about this design, though. It is hyper-progressive. Look at how Omega can finish ceramic. This is just like AP does it. Brushed on the flanks, polished on the bevels, executed with diamond tools, immaculate. You can see the liquid metal deposits within the bezel, absolutely inseparable, co-bonded to the blue ceramic bezel. And of course, you've got a 60-hour power reserve. You've got an amagnetic escapement of silicon. You have the coaxial chronometer standard escapement, the tri-level here, that lives up to the billing George Daniels and Omega first issued in the late 90s, operating with lower maintenance requirements in the long term. Omega has introduced, I believe, 4-year warranties for these watches.
I think their in-house movements are up to 5-year warranties now. And there is, you know, going down the rumor mill here, I've heard it thrown out that they would go as far as a 10-year warranty, which it's interesting. You know, it's a relative term here, so I'm sure we've all had issues, you know, QC issues with one or the other. But we always say Rolexes and Omegas, they don't break. Relative to the rest of the brands, they are the most reliable watches, and especially given how many they make. So they could pull that off, Swatch Group. Their movements are that rugged and reliable that they could do that. So Rolex has done 5 years. It would be pretty cool and be big industry news if they came out with a 10-year warranty.
And I will say this, in terms of sophistication, for the money, no company sells a more advanced movement. I mean, this is true alternative escapement technology. We take it for granted because the coaxial, and I'm going to show you, this watch also has a polished blue ceramic dial. That's right, the dial is also ceramic. The hands and the indices are white gold. Now, George, this watch is about $12,000, right?
11.7, yeah.
11.7. So between this and a wait list for a 43mm anniversary Sea Dweller, I don't even have to think twice. They're both big watches, but this one's comfortable and light and ceramic, and it would be the easy choice for me with the color and the character it brings to the table. And like you said, there are some brands, we're not going to name and shame them here, that are boomerang brands. They have a high warranty claim rate. We wind up sending a lot of them back when we get them. We make a point of not buying those watches, but we know they're out there. So knowing just how sophisticated a tri-level coaxial tangential contact escapement is, the fact that it works is amazing. And the fact that it fits my baby wrist is even more impressive. Guys, that's a 16-centimeter circumference wrist and a 45.5mm case. Does it work? You better believe it does. And like I said, this is a cheerful watch, and I wouldn't be shocked if this one has a short production life.
Awesome watch for sure.
All right, George, I think we've hit just about everything on the head. Guys, everyone who joined us, big thanks to George Mayer for joining. Always a pleasure. He brings real energy to the show. You guys who got up early, stayed up late from the far-flung corners of the world. I saw one shout-out from Jakarta. Guys, thank you so much. We're going to be back tomorrow evening with Watches Live on Watchbox Reviews. Until then, I'm Tim. He's George. This is Watchbox, and thanks for logging on.